with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business tonight is the approval of the prior minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move on to our reports tonight. Randy?
Right, underwater, the plant's treated 665,020 gallons of water since our May 9th meeting. Our average daily usage is up to 47,501. Filters were backwashed on May 9th and 16th. The water meter's been read for the month of May. I ordered the new meter for Bex. The cost of the meter was $21.58. I don't know how you guys want to handle that, but where we're at, I've talked to multiple different people on this topic. And actually, Eric Nugent, who is the son of the owner of Utility Supply, actually came out here to talk to me a little bit about the meters. And the meters will read vertically. They do not recommend them in vertical installation. They definitely said I need a compound meter, which is what we initially told them they needed. When I looked further into it with Utility Supply on how the meter got ordered, Bex has dealt with a salesman before that is no longer here. It doesn't even work for the company anymore that used to cover this area, which is now Brian Stater's area and has been for a long, long time. So I'm assuming they called the number of a card they had, which rang to Peru. They ordered a 2-inch meter. Did not specify. So Utility Supply says when you order a 2-inch meter, you get a T10. It's not a compound meter. T10s are what people used to use years ago. They're still available, but very few people still use the T10 meter. So Utility Supply is saying it wasn't our fault. Our salesman up there, what they verified was the radio read unit that we have on the meter. And you can put the radio read head on any Neptune meter. So they verified that that was right. They'll do nothing about the meter because they ordered a 2-inch meter and they got a 2-inch meter. Even though it wasn't the meter we told them to get. Utility Supply is not going to do anything about it. Can't return it. It's been used. So it's ours, it's theirs. However we want to decide that. In the meter, we got 3 choices here. You guys decide. We could put the compound meter in, leave it vertical. It is what it is. Nobody will give any sort of an accuracy rating on the meter in a vertical position. They're manufactured to be horizontal. They do not test them in a vertical installation. They're not certified for it. Some of those I've talked to, of course, they will still work. They said the biggest issue is backflow. Issues being in a vertical position. With our meters, which is radio read, and the R900 heads that we use, they read in both directions. So if that meter goes the opposite direction, it reads it, it records it. When we read a meter that has a major backflow, like when we first put the meters in, there were a few meters that got put in backwards. But it read it and it said reverse, but it read all the gallonage. So at this point, if we change the installation, which is gonna be on us because our engineer approved it. I think it would be better to wait until the season is over and the facility is vacated for the winter. It's full now. And I will be able to audit that meter monthly when we read it and see if it is reverse flowing or if it is not. But again, there's no guarantee of the accuracy. I mean, the one that's out there now is reading, but they've assured me that the T10 that's out there is reading slow. It's just not made, and he said the bigger you go on a T10 meter, the worse it will get, versus like a 3/4 1 inch meter like we have, for our houses. But this month's read, it was like 14,000 and some gallons on it, and the small meter, which is for outside, no sewer. It's just outside spigots around there. It was a little over 6,000. I think it was about 6,200. So I've got the meter to install and I guess monitor it as we move forward here. But you guys are gonna have to decide, because either we change the plumbing inside to make the meter in the right location, or the only other option is outside, in a meter pit like the rest of them.
The extra piping that we talked about that could.
It won't fit. I went out, took site measurements, photographs, got with suppliers. Even a resetter that big will be custom anyway, so they do have a little room to move it. But there is no way that a resetter is going in.
Plumbing can't be wiggled and.
Well, no. I mean, and if we're getting into moving the plumbing, you might as well just move the plumbing and instead of horizontally. Problem is, that picture I had, if you look at it, everything, I mean, the plumber did a great job. Everything is just so compact. I mean, they're almost, a lot of those fittings are almost fitting to fitting. I mean, there's like a 1/4 inch between the fittings, it's that tight. So there's no room to spin or turn it or.
And why are we paying the bill or debating whether or not we're paying the bill?
For what?
For that meter,
Which
for
portion?
the utility supply that you.
Well, it wasn't theirs. It really falls back on Bex, so I guess whatever argument you wanna have with them. It's gotta be a compound meter because I've already done it myself.
Well, it's been billed to the town, right?
This meter here, yes, it has been built to the town at this point because this was all unresolved, but I want to get the meter. We gotta have the meter because I'll tell you can go in there and turn a sink on and it will not move that 2-inch meter.
So we'd probably be better off putting it in the ground outside.
Or inside, it's gonna have to be one.
Will that compound meter fit in there? In place of the T10?
Well, that's what I bought with it. That was part of it. They call it a retrofit kit. Because a lot of places change to compounds.
Yeah.
So it's a flange piece of brass that comes with a whole kit and gaskets. The T10 meter is 17 1/4 inches and compound meters are 15-inch meters.
Oh, okay.
So it's a spacer, so it'll fit in what's in there now. My thing, I'm still back to the fact that they're at full capacity and
Yeah,
it really
you have to wait till
falls
the
back on our
season.
engineer. No matter what we do, my recommendation is to wait until the season is over and they vacate.
Not even replace the
Well, I'm gonna put
with
the compound in
okay.
there now, but I'm just
Okay.
saying that won't take, 10, 15
Okay.
minutes. We can do that.
All right, but then the major stuff, wait until the season's over.
Whichever direction we decide to go, I'm
Okay.
saying wait till,
When is our traditional busy
Now.
month?
well, they're out there. No, I'm talking about for the people living out there. Beck's brought all the workers in. Yeah, the building's full. And there'll probably be people there until the end of October. Sometime in October.
Now, is there anywhere
in the building permit or any documents that we specified that compound meter to Bex,
Just at our meeting here.
just verbally, and it's nothing.
Well, and there's another thing too. We have a bill for almost a couple thousand from
1,600.
Triad for them coming up and meeting with Bex and all of that I've submitted to Bex for reimbursement, and it's gone ignored.
So we're looking at 4,000 or 5,000.
Maybe a letter.
This, for the full deal?
Yeah, for the full deal.
I mean, if we totally fix everything, I don't even count Triad's bill, I mean, we're gonna be in the $7,000 or $8,000 range.
And Triad approved, excuse me, they approved the original design of the meter being in the building. Because excuse me,
The plans are over there. That was.
Bex wants the meter inside, and I understand that. With that facility shut down in winter, I mean, chances are it wouldn't freeze outside, but they want to be safe, so they want it inside. And it was put in for the drawing of Triad, am I correct?
Triad didn't do the drawing, Beck's engineer did the drawings.
But
They reviewed them.
they reviewed them and said,
And that's what irritated me at the last meeting, was Stu said, well, do you have a signature on that? And what I wanted to tell him was, do you have a signature for the $1,600 bill you sent us? You know, I mean, they billed us for their service, and their service was to review the plans, make recommendations for changes. I mean, both of you were involved in a couple different meetings we had with them up here.
And make sure that.
And make sure that everything was kosher, and, I mean, I'll be honest, and this is what I tried telling Triad. I've never put a meter in a building. Every meter I've ever installed, including the one at
Outside.
when we master metered the mobile home park, it's in the ground.
Well, when this come about, you know, I was surprised because the meeting that we had up here with Bex and all Bex representatives, we discussed it and we told them that the vault, it had to be in a vault outside with the check valves and everything else, and the valve on the main going to the meter setting, so we could shut the meter setting off at a main valve. And we sat up here with the engineering firm, and that's what we left that meeting and agreed that they were going to do.
Yeah.
And I was unaware that there was another meeting held with Bex coming back with another set of drawings, putting that inside that building after we as the council sat up here and discussed that with them, and we told them we wanted it in the ground, in a vault.
In some of the meetings,
So,
there were several exchanges back and forth between our engineer and Beck's.
yeah.
They resubmitted a new plan because they wanted it inside, like a lot of commercial meters are. And again, I've never installed a meter inside.
See, I got mixed feelings on this. You know, if our engineer approved a set of plans that meter would not operate in, then the engineer approved something that is not acceptable.
But now they're not saying, they're not taking ownership for it.
So, you know, then that's what
They're
that
not saying they
1,600.
didn't, but they're saying, well, did you basically telling us we can approve it?
And that $1,600 that they're, you know, sending out, wanting us to back it, but, I mean, they're sending it to us wanting paid, which is, in our ordinance, it's, you know, Bex is responsible to pay that for our engineering service. It's a part of our ordinance. But at the same time, if the engineer approves something that doesn't work, they ought to be held accountable to redo the plumbing in that place, as far as I'm concerned. And we, you know, I don't know why they'd approve something after we sat up here as a council and met with them and told them that we wanted it outside in the vault.
Do they have verbal proof that they agreed to?
Do they have signed or?
Signed proof? Who signed it?
Nobody's, that's what Triad's
So
argument
there's
is.
no
We
good
didn't,
then, right?
we didn't sign off on it, so that's why Triad says it's not their fault. And I'm like, then why did we even talk to you? Why did you review the plans? You know, and charge $1,600.
And as far as the meter goes, I mean, Andy verbally specified that it was a compound meter, and Bex is the one who purchased the meter. And
Well,
Andy told them who our supplier was, and they got the wrong meter.
And Caleb ordered it, and I'll give him, I mean, it's just a bad chain of events because I told him 2-inch compound meter.
That's what he should have called and ordered.
But here's what he ordered, and this is where utility supplies getting all tricky with me. They didn't call Brian, and I told them that they had our specifications and everything on the meters we use. You know? Instead, like I said, for whatever reason, they called Peru and said, we need a 2-inch meter that Atlanta uses. And utility supplies coming back with, well, all we made sure was that it was radio read. They didn't check anything else, and they say it's not their responsibility. They ordered a 2-inch meter, and they got a 2-inch meter.
Well, Beck should have specified a 2-inch compound meter, and Atlanta's specifications is the radio read. So basically, that's all, they should have, compound meter was, if they had said compound meter, we'd got a compound meter.
Beck's ordered it, so they should have.
I didn't get a price back yet, but I know it was a lot less. I mean, the 2-inch T10 was probably $600 or $700 versus
$2,100
$1,900 dollars, because the kit, the retrofit kit was like $219. So the meter itself was actually around $1,900 without the kit.
I personally think Beck's should have to replace that meter, being that they didn't order a compound meter whenever it was specified that that's what was required. And how many distributors and stuff keeps everybody's detailed information on, you can call and get a 2-inch meter. You tell them 2-inch meter, you can get a 2-inch meter, whatever you want. There's different styles and types of 2-inch meters, but you told them a compound, they should have requested a compound, and then if nothing else, we'd have got a compound without radio read head on it, which is a lot cheaper to change out.
Right.
So now, and the plumbing would have been plumbed to fit without the adapter. So
right now, as our Atlanta utility superintendent, you recommend just hold off to the end of season?
Well,
in a process, we can determine what we're gonna do about who's gonna pay.
we need to figure out which option we're gonna go, but I just think, I still feel that since our engineer approved it, if you went out there and saw this thing on site, this is probably gonna take a plumber like 3 days. With 2 guys to redo this thing. And everything's so tight, it's all in copper. Every bit of those fittings are gonna be trashed. And they're 2-inch fittings. Some of those fittings are probably $75, $80 a piece. And it's just it's not fair to Vex to shut the building down with no water for 3 days. In my opinion, we just can't do it because of a mistake that ultimately falls back on us. We're the water provider. Our engineer green-lighted it, so
That's right.
they submitted a drawing with them. It's over there in the drawer, and I'm telling you, it's identical to the drawing. It is not deviated from the drawing that they submitted.
The only thing I'm saying is though, if we do try to force Bex to pay for it or whoever, how long is all it's gonna take? To find out who's responsible for replacing it, and, I'm just trying to get something resolved tonight in a way.
what do you think, Manny? Do we have any grounds to stand on as far as Andy specified compound meter? Beck's didn't. They wanted to purchase a meter themselves, cut out the middleman. So that was approved for them to purchase a meter. They didn't get the compound meter required. It wasn't in writing, it was verbal.
Yeah, the only hole is whether or not we can prove that we required a compound meter.
Well,
and if you were at the meeting, obviously you
did,
can prove that.
And my thing was, and they're weird about this because they wanted me to get the meter, and I'm like, well, I'll get the meter, but you're paying for it.
Right.
Well, when they found out they were paying for it, I don't know if they thought they were going to get a better deal than us or not.
If they called.
Then they said they wanted to buy the meter.
Yeah.
Once I told them you're paying for the meter, it's how our ordinance is, then they wanted to get it. Otherwise, I would call the same guy I called to get the one that's at the town garage.
No, I think it's pretty clear for both Triad and Bex, but I think we need to start the conversation soon. maybe before you even do anything, like Andy said, if you want to wait, that's fine. But I don't think you should wait to start the conversation about who pays.
No.
Yeah.
Was there any recording when they admitted, or when they said they wanted to buy the meter? I mean, there was no recording, just all verbal.
It is verbal.
Okay. I mean, there's no way to prove it.
I still feel Triad is responsible for this.
Yeah.
Well, my thing, they gotta have some skin in the game.
They do.
This is the third little ding we've got.
Well, we have some leverage, don't we? We're getting $1 million project with them.
Yeah.
But
And they're working on that. I mean, they should pay. That shouldn't be more than a couple of phone calls.
Well, I've tried one, so it should probably come from one of you, because I got shot down in my phone call to Triad about this deal.
So you're looking at 2158, is that the price that you,
That's the meter, yeah.
Just for the meter.
it's 21.
that's not the plant?
The cost to replumb it is unknown at this time.
It was 2133. I
It's just the meter.
wrote it, and it was
Okay, that's
cheaper.
not the labor and all that stuff?
No, that is just the
Just
meter.
for the meter, okay.
Just the meter.
So we're looking at far more than just.
Yeah. It was, the meter itself was 1,915.38, and the spacer kit was 210.
And that meter does not read correctly.
Well, they won't say. I mean, I've talked to people, here's the thing. I've talked to about 10 different people, no kidding. Everybody has a different theory. That all goes, even Brian. Brian says it'll read. He says the big problem is backflow. And the way they've installed it, they got 2 backflow valves after the meter. Comes up, turns, because it splits to go to 2 different locations, and there's 2 backflow valves. They're double checks. So Brian thinks it'll be okay, and that's why we came up with the idea about auditing the meter every month when I read the bill, just to see what kind of backflow we're getting. But as far as the manufacturer, they won't even comment on a vertical installation. They don't certify it for that, because when you get it, they bench test every meter. They got a flow bench, and every meter you get comes with a little tag on it where it was flow tested, and it's guaranteed, to usually within 1% of
100% accuracy.
Yeah, 100%. And the new chambers are the best design, that are out on the market. But they won't give me a number. They won't say, hey, if you put this thing vertical, it's gonna be off by 3 to 7%. Nobody will, even Neptune, you call the manufacturer, nobody, they say it's supposed to be horizontal installation.
Well, my thing is, you put a backflow in there, it's designed for when you have unanticipated problems.
Well,
Okay?
but the way-
The compound meter, if it was put in, bought correctly and installed correctly, you shouldn't have any, need for a backflow. Well, or at least not 2 of them, like,
Well,
So
the
I'm
way-
just saying with the,
You'd have to see the way it's installed, though. Because the line comes in out of the floor, goes through fire protection, there's a double check, and then we come off with the domestic line. The domestic line goes up, they've got the meter in, we come out of the meter, the domestic line splits, because they have set it up to do this building and another building.
2 buildings.
And really, in the end, the way this thing was designed, it will do 6 buildings if they build everything that they want. But you could have a situation without those check valves up ahead. You could get a back siphon effect, the way the pipe comes up and comes back down. You know what I mean? So you're coming out of the floor, you're doing all this stuff, and then you're going back down into the floor, because everything's on a slab out there. So that's why their engineer put the double check valves in, so you're not.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm in favor of having the right kind of equipment to do the right kind of job. And, we were supposed to get a compound meter and we didn't.
So we're gonna,
Do the Triad bills, do they, because I've seen a couple of them, and they usually do a little summary. I wonder if we can match up the timeline of when we got the final Bex drawing with their final little summary, so that way we can kind of work our way back into their approval.
The meeting was here.
Yeah,
The Triad bill is pretty generic. It's like engineering services in connection with Bex, something.
Yeah,
Sure.
It's got a breakdown of how many hours and
Yeah.
whatever the rate was.
well, I mean, that might be, if we can kind of backdate it, that might be enough, and obviously with Andy being there, to get him on the hook for that. I don't think there's any doubt they're responsible, and the Bex is responsible. They're just probably
So,
waiting for you to act.
I think we need to send them a letter stating that we're not paying their $1,600 for their servicing fees and that we expect them to pay for the replumbing of the Bex thing that was approved by them. And then send Bex a bill for the cost of that compound meter and tell them that they didn't order what was spec'd when they got their permit. You know, between, you know, them getting the wrong meter, that's their person calling in the supplier and getting the wrong meter. So, you know, when they were told what they needed and they didn't follow through with what was spec'd in the original permit, verbal or written, I mean, that was them guys calling. We didn't have anything to do with that. We shouldn't be held accountable or responsible for getting the right equipment in there that our meter, you know, we require. Actually, that ain't even gonna read any of the faucets. So we're gonna lose every bit of the revenue out there unless they open up a hydrant or something major out there that's gonna pull and turn that meter. It ain't
Well, it's
gonna get
reading.
any readings hardly.
And I know it's reading when they, you know, whatever, 50 people come home and start taking showers. You know, it's.
Yeah, but what percentage?
No, I'm agreeing with you, but
Yeah,
I'm saying we're getting, it's reading some,
How much
but,
water are you talking about, the course of a year?
A lot.
yeah, it was 14,
Yeah.
it was 14, this last month they used 14,000, a little over 14,000 gallons.
Well, and shouldn't the utility be ordering the meter?
Well, I wanted to. I mean, yeah. And then when they said they wanted to order it, I told them what they needed.
Now, Triad will come back. Does the plumbing have to be reworked in order to make the, okay,
I tried, they make a thing called the resetter.
yeah,
That is a device that you would put in there where the meter goes, but then it's got pipes coming out of it, and you can flip it horizontally.
sure. There's just no room to fit that.
There is no room because the manufacturer even said, you give us the dimensions and we will custom build it. You know, they'll shift it side to side, but there is no room. And there's actually 2 meters out there. There is a 1-inch meter that's vertical also that is for all of the outside spigots, and they've got 3 watering stations out there where people fill their drink coolers. They're NSF approved. It's not just a yard hydrant, but all the yard hydrants and the drink cooler fill stations are all on a 1-inch meter. There's not even enough room to put a resetter on the 1-inch meter. I mean, it is just compact. The plumber, they did a great job. I mean, it is.
Will that 1 inch need to be changed eventually too?
Well, yeah, if we're paying to do it all. I mean, it's the right meter. The 1-inch meter is the correct meter.
That it needs to be.
Needs to be, I mean, for us to get guaranteed accuracy, it needs to be horizontal. I mean, that's what everyone said. They said it'll read, it'll probably read close to right, but for guaranteed accuracy.
Triad missed that.
Or the engineer that looked at it did.
It falls on them.
I mean, Beck's engineer drew it,
He drew it, our engineer,
so it was okay.
Approved it.
They didn't have a problem with it.
But didn't sign off on it. Just said it was okay.
Well, billing you
let's
$1,600
trust
is as good
let's
as,
trust that,
is as good as
in
signing.
good faith, they will step up to the plate and take care of this. And especially with this project that we're getting ready to. It's $1 million project.
1,600,000.
So that would be my hope.
Yeah.
So who's sending the letters, us or Manny?
think it'll probably have more teeth in it if it come from Manny.
Can I have a copy of that report, Andy? Or Robin, can you just email it to me?
It's not very detailed. You want us to email you the
Just so I can get
facts?
a better idea of the facts. I
Yeah,
can
that would probably be better coming from.
close
like
up.
A summary of
Yeah,
everything.
and it's gonna be
happened.
semi-polite.
Well, I can look at some,
Yeah.
Well, I would
Initially.
hope so.
yeah, I can look at the dates of,
But I mean, I'm gonna make clear that we expect you to take care of this.
I can look at the dates of
Those are two major air balls.
the meeting we had.
Especially with Triad.
Yeah, okay.
So is it
That'd be
two
helpful.
letters, one to,
One to Bex and one to
Try.
Triad on the replumbing.
Yeah,
So I think Bex, they ordered their own meter. We have nothing to do with that. It's not our responsibility. They were told a compound meter and, they call up there and say you want something for Atlanta. We don't deal, like say, with Peru. So they should have asked you what location to call and talk to, who the sales rep was that had that information, or, and they should have said compound. If they said compound, we'd got a compound meter. Whether or not it had the right head on it or not, we'd have got a compound
Yeah,
meter,
you
so.
Do you guys know who Beck's lawyer is? 'Cause this might be better if I just
they probably have
call.
lawyers.
Well, yeah, but there's usually one guy or gal that kind of,
I have no idea.
all right.
Or do you think it would be better for us?
Well, that's what I'm thinking,
You know.
because you have a different relationship with Bex than you do with Triad, right? Triad needs to please you.
Yes, they do.
Bex necessarily, that doesn't necessarily,
Bex is a customer.
yeah, well, that's
At
right,
this point,
that's right.
they're a customer to our utility at this point. And I know this has been Andy can tell you better than anyone, this has been a process.
Yeah,
I mean, they're used to
getting their way.
doing their thing, their way,
Yeah.
and it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
But they're still a customer.
But I haven't, the farthest extent of the conversations I've had today was with Caleb Bruner, who called Peter in. I called him and asked him specifically what he said. So, and I just told him, I said there was an issue with the meter, it's the wrong meter. I said, we're working on this. And I just told him I would get back to him. I didn't take it any farther than that.
Yeah. So I would recommend that you reach out initially, and if they just completely ignore you or wait on it, then I'd say let's get a little deeper into it. I mean, just flat out send them a bill.
I'd send them the invoice for that new meter and tell them that you have been out and tested that meter that they installed that was the improper meter and it doesn't register at low flows, and you have purchased a correct meter, and that's the invoice, and we expect them to pay for it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That, send that to them and request payment in full, and the adapter, the spacer and everything. They-
Like Fred said, treat them like any other customer. What would you do if it was, you send them a bill, right?
Right. And that's what this letter that's I gave you additionally is about what started the whole ball rolling. Which is further down, like the next portion of our report, we retired the water main out there, removed 3 meter settings and a flush hydrant, and did a new service tap over to the new main. And USIC and Vectren have a new program. They have these damage prevention guys that go around. And anytime you're going to be working near a gas main, they come out to verify locates. They want to know when you're doing it, how you're doing it, where you're doing it. And he came out and met with us. I said, here's when we're doing it. He said, if I can, I'm going to come out. And I said, we'll be here. He didn't. We got everything done. And of course, there was no incident. And last Friday, I was off. He called me, the inspector did, his name's Jacob Cook, and was asking me about the work, if I was done, and we were gonna need a job extension, because my ticket was getting ready to expire. And I told him no, that the other work going on out there was Bex. I said it wasn't us, we've done everything we're done. And he made the comment he didn't see a ticket on it. And I said, well, that's because they don't call locate tickets in, which is the law. And he said, well, I'm gonna need to go talk to him. He said, if you're ever out there, you see him, he said, call me, I wanna go talk to him. I said, okay. Red meters, they were out there working. I called him, I said, hey, those guys are out there. They're widening this road. So they contacted Bex. Bex gave them a whole different story, that it was a locate ticket, that they called the ticket in, which they didn't. They only called 2 locate tickets in for the entire project, start to finish. Well, then Zen called Johnny and had a conversation with him that, I'm picking on him. So, I made this 2-page report here that shows you everything that I've let go, that I could have fined them on. And it's significant. And I ain't picking on them. I don't care what Zen says. It's illegal in the state of Indiana to dig in the ground without a locate ticket. And they then admitted to Johnny, they are digging on my locate ticket, which is illegal. And you're talking to someone that got written up for digging on someone else's locate ticket, and the contractor damaged our utility, and I dug on his ticket, and I got in trouble for it. I got a written reprimand from the Indiana Regulatory Commission.
And one initiated this, Zen called me, it was just today, and he told me he wanted to talk to me, he wanted to know if I was around, he wanted to talk to me face to face, and I was busy. And he said, well, I need to talk to you sometime. He said, we're having some issues, and he said, I don't know what Andy's problem is. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, he said, veteran guy come out and on our site, and Andy had called him and told him that we were out here digging without a locate ticket, and they come out and looked, and the paint marks were on the ground, and we told him that, that there was a ticket, and that he said, the guy from Veteran said, well, I don't know what Andy's problem, that guy from Atlanta's problem is, but it seems like he's got it out for you guys. And he said, I'm getting sick and tired of it, and he said, my boss is tired of it, and we want it to stop, and we don't know what Andy's problem is, and he said, I thought I'd call you and talk to you. And I said, well, who was the guy from Vector? I don't know. He said, then Zen says, well, I wasn't there. So he wasn't there during the conversation with whoever was there, Vector or the guy from ICU. And I said, okay. I said, I'm going to check into this. I'll find out. And I said, I'll get back with you. So I call Andy to find out what was going on. And he tells me what he just said about talking to this Jacob Cook, which he is the enforcement. He's the safety guy for Veteran. And he comes out anytime you're digging close to a gas line and gas service or anything. And he usually stands on site and watches and everything. And I told Andy what took place. Well, then Andy starts telling me all this stuff right here. This is the second time that Zen has called me and complained about Andy. And the first time was Andy won't come out here and do any inspections. We call him over and over and over, and he doesn't come out and inspect. And I told Zen at that time, I said, well, I don't know. Andy's told me he's been out there numerous times and inspected things. And I said, this is what I'm going to suggest to you. I said, you call the office and you tell Robin that you're ready for an inspection, and she'll give Andy a work order. And that Robin will know when you call in. And if he ain't coming out there, we'll deal with it.
And that's what our building permit says.
I told him, I said, you call the office, you tell Robin you need an inspection, she will relay that information in a work order to Andy, and I said, then you can also call Andy, and he'll have, it'll be on his phone also. And I said, you could also send him an email, and then you got an email, copy of an email that you requested it. And I said, then you have something you can show us. And he goes, well, that's what my boss has suggested, so we're going to do that. He says, I'll call the office and I'm going to send emails. Well, after talking to Andy with this coming about, apparently they haven't called for inspections. He had Robin to look up how many times they called this office.
I have all my call logs.
So I don't know what, it seems like, and after, I didn't realize that Andy had looked at this much stuff during his inspections out there and kind of overlooked some of it and let them go, when he could have enforced our ordinances on them and actually put stop work orders on them. They started building without a permit. It's just numerous. I mean, you guys see, you got a copy of it. And, I don't see where Andy has done nothing but pretty much bent over backwards to assist them guys in what went on out there. And they haven't called any line locate tickets in. And like he says, that's against the law. And they have done numerous dig jobs out there where you're supposed to call in on every project you dig on. And they have failed to do that, which, now, since Zen has called and brought this to my attention that Andy's the problem, and it seems to me that he isn't, because Jacob Cook is looking into it from what Andy says, and I'm gonna call Jacob myself before I call Zen back. Because I told Zen I'd get back with him. I'm gonna let him know, and I recommended that Andy take this to Zen's boss, which is Todd Marchand. Because Zen said his boss was tired of it, this is what Andy's doing. So I think Todd Marchand needs to know exactly what's been taking place out there and hear both sides of the story instead of what Zen's going back and telling him. So that's my recommendation to Andy, is to talk to Zen's boss and find out what the problem is out there and why they're not following the ordinances. They're not following any of the building ordinances or the state laws on digging out there. And Zen told me, he said, all we're doing is digging 13 inches and putting gravel in there. We ain't even nowhere near that gas main. I don't care. It says right in the state laws that if you put a shovel in the ground, you're supposed to call. And he said, we're even on our own property. It don't matter whose property you're on or what you're doing. Anytime you stick a shovel in the ground, that is a state law.
Well, maybe if Bex wants to remain a customer, then you start being more proficient with their work.
Well, you read this.
Follow the rules,
Well, you read this stuff here, Andy, and I know for a fact, because Andy called me, he was down there at his conference for his CEUs for his utility license.
sewer.
He told him not to hook up the sewer, there was no connections to be made to the water, into the water system or into the sanitary sewer system. They call him, they're hooked into the sanitary sewer while he's gone. There was pictures taken of it, they got improper connections, and they're supposed to correct those. Those still haven't been repaired, or none of that stuff. But yet Andy's the one that's not being cooperative and the problem. And I don't see it by this. And, I think that, Zen's boss needs to be involved with this and find out exactly
Yep.
what he's aware of and what's been going
Just so
on
you
out
know,
there.
for the majority of these, because the way this started out, I take Jeff with me on every inspection. So I got a witness standing right next to me.
And supposedly the veteran,
Water mains.
Oh yeah, when you get out there, well, that's a whole nother story. When I went to take the flush hydrant out,
Yeah.
I called Locates in. They knew I was out there to do it. They turned that whole thing into a parking lot. And I was gonna dig down next to the hydrant and see if I could snap it off the main, because it's a flush hydrant, it's small. And I was digging down and I saw something red, a piece of plastic, looked like a plastic flag. I told Jeff, I said, what is that? He was wondering. I said, right there, what is that? He gets it, and it says buried utility. So I get off the tractor, I go over and talk to one of the guys who was working there, and I said, did you guys bury something over here? And he said, yeah, power. So I had a power line,
By the water line.
like this far from the hydrant, that wasn't even marked. And that's why in the one letter that I sent him was the 3 things we really needed to finish. One were those sewer connections, 2 was the valve to the building, which they did put the valve in, and the other one was as-bills. Because when you get out around what is now the last fire hydrant, they got boxes and bolts in the ground and wire and stuff running everywhere, and that's why I want something. And my final suggestion to them, which I haven't made yet, is I think for that out there, they should be on the call list for Holy Moly when someone goes out there to do work. Because it's not just us that got buried and covered up with stuff, the gas is the same way.
I had a question for you, Manny. When this was originally done and they got their permit to do this, that was a county road. Now they have petitioned the county to vacate that, and they were granted vacating that road. And now we got utilities running down the side of that road.
Right.
And they have got private utilities and power and things ran across the utility easement that easement got recorded, correct? And
Yeah,
we do have
the easement, I have a letter from it, the easement is veterans. And our new water main is in a shared easement with veteran. And
Okay.
We have the letter from veteran.
A non-encroachment or whatever.
Yeah, it's approving us to be,
Yeah,
the
right.
easement it's either 40 or 45 feet wide
Yeah,
that we are now sharing with veteran.
okay.
Now, can they run private utilities across the utility easement that is for, like, municipal utilities?
Well, it's be veterans. If veteran gave them the permission to do it, then sure. Because they're essentially giving you permission to do it too.
So we should have went after our own utility easement in order for us to run that main down through there. We should have cut it off right there at Winston's Road. That's what we should have done. Because basically we have no utility easement or no control or authority over that, other than what Vectren says that can or cannot happen. So now we got power in there around our water main.
We had one until they vacated the road.
So where does our easement, our original easement stand? Does it stay?
Well, did you have them recorded?
Was there?
I know that was an
Well, it
issue
was put in
with that road.
1968. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean,
And where does it line up with Vectrans? I mean, that's what we need to look at. I mean, you still have access and use of your own.
Yeah,
I mean,
my
there's
point is they're
nothing-
bearing private power around it, that they're not anywhere to locate when you call in a line.
Right, if it's yours, if they're burying it on Vectrans, then, I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah, where they're crossing, like he's saying, right next to where our water line in our easement that we had before the road was vacated.
Right.
They ran power without notifying anybody, and he's out there digging and there's power buried.
Right, which is,
And if he hadn't seen the red tape that they dropped in the trench, he'd have ripped the power out and had live power in the hole. So, you know,
does Vectran know about that? Yeah. That might be a way to get around it, is to talk to Vectran about it, because,
well, they had a whole dispute. I know that Jacob Cook, because the thing got discussed about, they told him the same thing, we're digging on our property, and Jacob said, no, you're digging on Vectrans. So, they know it's the recorded easement.
right.
Yeah.
It's a matter if Vectran knows and if they
I
are
don't
gonna
know.
care enough to come out. I mean, I'm assuming they would. They'll have some responsibility for it.
Yeah, they probably would. And it gets, the farther out you go, the tighter everything gets. When you get closer to the building, everything starts going. That's why I left one of the meter pits, because Vectran bored that gas line in a meter pit that we abandoned. I cut the meter out and took the lid and 2 riser rings off of it and left it in there, because the gas main is it's like right behind it. That was what the inspector was so worried about. He's like, man, that's really tight out there. And I said, my plan is to leave the pit in the ground. I'm
doing digging.
not messing with it. We don't need it back, and if somebody else wants it out, they can mess with getting it out. So, but no, that's what this list is for you guys to see. This is everything that's transpired throughout this
That you
little
know of.
project. Yeah, that I know of throughout this project here. And moving on to wastewater, and performing daily checks at the lift station and the sewer plant. The sewer plant is open and we are discharging. The weekly sewer samples are complete, and the concrete slab around the lift station, where the new meter vault was installed, has been replaced. Streets we had some damage during the high winds, and we were able to take care of that stuff ourselves. The sidewalk in front of the post office has been repaired, and the one on Meridian Street where we did some water work has also been repaired. Pulled and cleaned the carpet in the shelter house and here last week at the chairs. And under building, we had 1 permit application, 1 permit inquiry, 1 zoning inquiry, and the May census report has been submitted. Unless you have any questions about anything.
Did you find out anything about Watson's, we would bid on that?
Well, they won the bid. There is.
I mean, did we get a price on that, or maybe I missed that?
Yeah, you missed it. It's $1,222,000 or something. It was in my that's report here.
That's neat.
It was $1,224,013.
Yeah,
They were the lowest, but the next closest bidder was about $253,000 higher. $263,000 higher. And there was, the highest bid was double. I talked to him on the phone. Their time schedule is to start at the end of August on this. I mean, which of course, you're still in a waiting period right now with Oak and everything anyways. I mean, they're currently doing a job in Pendleton. I mean,
Estimated time.
Bill said 150 days, start to finish. That's what they put in there. I mean, weather permitting, unless they got all rained out or something, but 150 days. Just,
5 months. Okay, we'll move on to code enforcement.
I've issued 9 notices since my last report. I'd like to see about, is there anything happen with the trees down here?
Spoke with the property owner
Yeah.
about the trees. If you could take him a visit,
Okay,
give him some specifics.
okay. So he's still okay, he wants to take care of them himself still? Alright,
Definitely. Let's take care of it.
alright, I'll see if I can make it down there on Thursday. No, it'll be next week.
Can I ask what the issue with the trees is?
Well, ask Murray.
So, by our ordinance, any tree in town is supposed, if it's over a street, there's gotta be 14 feet of vertical clearance. Over a sidewalk, there has to be 8 feet of vertical clearance. Obviously, there's some leeway there, like somebody's here, you can walk over the ground and completely obstruct, so they're over. But the bottom line is, down there, those trees have gotten so big, they come out so far that it's, I've seen it obstruct parking, and it definitely causes a problem for festival, because they don't have that sort of clearance that's required.
I mean, it's not an issue. I just walked down and looked at it. I mean, you can get out of the car. I'm not 6 feet tall, you're above me.
It is an issue. Festivals or for any big vehicles. So they gotta be within the same standard that every other person is outside of other people for the same thing.
And this is an ordinance issue?
We had to come up a couple different places. One of them was over Pam's son's yard with a willow tree that ended up getting cut completely down, and then there was an issue over on another street that, same deal, with Bradford Pears, and they got in, they ended up getting cut by the town employees because the guy didn't cut them, It's per ordinance, we gotta force the ordinance, same on everybody.
We can't change the ordinance, or?
Well, the bottom line is it's a town tree anyway, it's not their personal property.
Oh, I see.
But he's requested the ability to maintain the trees. Matter of fact, that's what he agreed to when he put them in, to maintain trees standards.
So if he put them in, how are they the town tree?
Town property.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yep. So, yeah, we're just trying to afford him the courtesy of being able to maintain, have the person that he would like to have trim. So I'll pay him a visit. I do have a question. This came up. There's a property that's on the other side of 19. It's in town limits, but could become a broader issue here. Anything in town limits, according to our ordinance, has to be, any lawn has to be maintained. Any yard has to be maintained. According to, I think it's 9302 is 6 inches maximum, basically. That's what it is. Over there, that's been for a few years now treated kind of like farm ground, where they baled it. And,
Nick Harris's old house.
yeah, last year what I did is I told him, I met with the guy and we did a walk around of the property. He had a lot of other things to take care of. He's like, I'm not moved in yet. Can you work with me? And it was about, a little over halfway through the summer. And I said, you know what? you can complete this year the way that you have, and you can bail it again, I don't care. But in the future, we're gonna have to have this be maintained, like it's supposed to be. So the question is, according to our ordinance, it's supposed to be that way. I'm going over there to deal with a couple other issues here coming up. That project is gonna put a water main right through there. But I need to know, I guess I would like some additional direction or confirmation that that's how we want to deal with this. Because if it is, there's also 2 other properties that were formerly grandfathered over there up by that subdivision, when they used to be agricultural, that have changed ownership, that would be the same way now, because they lose their grandfather when they change ownership. And honestly, out at the subdivision too, I just went out there looking at it, and I mean, I don't know how any of those residents feel, but if I lived out there, I would want what's right next to my house to be mowed. It's pretty bad. Well, it's just grass.
Yeah, but I mean, the guy comes in and cuts it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to clarify is legally, I mean,
Usually
that
they
ability
make
is
it
gone,
tall, you know.
but, you know, is that something that,
Need to amend the ordinance.
yeah, I mean, did we create a amendment saying over X amount of acres and with town approval, whatever, or do we enforce it as written, or, I mean, I'm not in favor of ignoring an ordinance because it's inconvenient.
Brian Oberdorf's the one that makes the hay out there,
Yeah.
so.
Have you got
Maybe
any
the girl hadn't
complaints
said
from any
anything to him
neighbors?
yet.
Have you got any
Not on those
complaints
out
from any-
there, and this one, yeah, not really on any of them, to this point.
I've got a hayfield.
Well, yeah, I guess you'd fall in there too.
Sure do.
I would think, this way my mind works, but if nobody's complaining about it, I mean, I wouldn't take any legal action until somebody does really complain about it. I don't,
I'd say, so we're enforcing ordinance. If we're gonna allow that, I think we need to amend the ordinance,
That's what I would,
just so that, well, you know, you can't really enforce ordinances, sections of the ordinances on some people and then not you know, and then ignore something like that, and you're gonna go out and the guy's yard's over 6 inches high and you go mow it and put a lien on his property. And then you got other properties that are in the residential districts would fall under that same category. And we're ignoring them because they're larger acreage or whatever, and they've got weed or straw or any of that in it that, you know, I mean.
and if you go out to
I'm
the
not-
subdivision,
I'm-
there's Canadian thistle, there's all kinds of weeds and stuff in there too. It's not just like an alfalfa or something.
But
Yeah,
I think we
It
need,
used to be, it just hasn't been replanted for,
there used to be a lot of clover in that whenever they were bailing. I don't know, like I say, I haven't paid that much attention down, you know, I go down 19 to the dollar store and I haven't really paid much attention to the field, but
this guy doesn't have alfalfa or Timothy or something
I mean,
like that.
there's some, I'm sure it's a mix at this
I
point.
mean, it's
is what
just
I'm
not
saying.
yard grass, right? I mean, it's,
I mean,
No.
it's a big mix of
It's got out there.
different things, I'm sure.
mixed properties, just grass.
Yeah.
I think the other there.
That property there,
Yeah.
Nick's old house is just overgrown yard.
did they bail that?
That's what this current owner, Nick did it, I think the last year he lived here, and then this current owner has done it a couple of times. And the owner before that mowed it, reluctantly so, but he mowed it.
would he have to state that if he's bailing it, wouldn't that have to be considered farmland? You know, I mean, and not necessarily residential. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
We have a zoning ordinance, there's zoning
Yeah,
map that
that's what I
says
mean.
what's agricultural and what's residential, and these are properties fall under the residential.
They all fall under residential? Yeah.
I believe so. Well,
Brian,
let's see.
I've never had any complaints if any of the properties has got, you know, going.
I haven't either, but,
everything.
you know, especially with Nick's, it's,
And, you know, Nick's is kinda off by itself over, you know, there's no residents around it. The guy that bought that house in question, he owns the one next door to it too, so and he's right at the outskirts of town. I would say we'd amend the ordinance to permit it over so many acres or